to read between the lines. Got to read.
Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom D'Ambra. As always, we are very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. My friends, we have a lot of video to show to you today with this program. Actually, it's going to be the most video we've ever presented to you, so I'm going to have to be quick with some of the information that I personally want to deliver to you. And before we do that, I'd like to read some quotes to you about liberty, about what is required of us as citizens of our republic to format and maintain our liberty. We haven't maintained our liberty though. We need to gain our liberty back. So just some quick quotes here. This is from the first president of the United States, George Washington. A primary object should be the education of our youth in the science of government. In a republic, what species of knowledge can be equally important? And what duty more pressing than communicating it to those who are to be the future guardians of the liberties of our country? Okay, my friends, very important what Mr. Washington's talking about here and what has happened with the public school system. They no longer teach the Constitution. They no longer teach real history. They have dumbed us down. Okay, this is from James Madison. The advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. Again, knowledge, my friends, the advancement of it and the diffusion, breaking it down, have an understanding. All right, very important that we understand this. Let us continue. This is from President Ronald Reagan. I hope we once again have reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that it is as near and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts. Absolutely true, my friends. There is a balance of the more government you have, the less liberty you have. The more liberty you have, the less government you have. The less intrusiveness and taxation and regulation into our lives. Let us continue. This is from John Stuart Mill. If all mankind, minus one, were of one opinion and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing mankind. In other words, my friend, again, information and education, how vital it is, not only that we maintain it, but we maintain our freedom of speech. Okay, very important we understand that. Edmund Burke. But what is liberty without wisdom and without virtue? It is the greatest of all possible evils, for it is folly, vice, and madness without tuition or restraint. Those who know what virtuous liberty is cannot bear to see it disgraced by incapable heads on account of their having high-sounding words in their mouths. My friends, this sums me up and the people behind the camera who work so diligently to bring this program to you. We just can't stand to see our liberties being destroyed, and also what liberties are there have been taken advantage of by people without wisdom and without virtue. John F. Kennedy. Liberty without learning is always in peril, and learning without liberty is always in vain. Again, knowledge, information. Samuel Adams. If ever a time should come when vain and aspiring men shall possess the highest seats in government, our country will stand in need of its experienced patriots to prevent its ruin. And my friends, this is exactly what's going on today. 250-something years when this statement was made by Samuel Adams, later we find ourselves in this predicament. Okay, let us continue here. Last week I reported to you about this new fetish. I'll be real quick. This new fetish about what's going on with couples having sex, the woman getting pregnant, and then the new fetish is having an abortion. And I reported to you that I found a couple on the internet that were braggingly going on about they've done this 4 times and how great it was. Again, they go through the cycle of having the woman become pregnant and having the abortion. It starts from A and it goes, the Z is when the baby is killed. This is the new fetish with the young people today. Well, not to be outdone, another couple on the internet gleefully reported that they have done this 7 times. They have 7 times had the woman get pregnant and 7 times had abortions. Isn't this just lovely, my friends? Isn't this just incredible? You may have not heard about this in the mainstream media, but New York City, under law, my friends, has banned anyone calling an illegal alien an illegal alien. I am not making that up. If you call an illegal alien, you are now breaking the law within the conference of New York City. And it goes even farther when you read this law. If you threaten to call ICE on them, or if you call ICE on them, you can go to prison and or be fined up to $250,000 for calling them an illegal immigrant, for threatening them. That's a threat to call ICE on them. Immigration, customs, right? The people who come and make sure that they're here legally. Or if you actually make the call on them, you can have jail time, potential jail time, and a $250,000 fine. Unbelievable. Okay. Let's read this quote from the father of the American education system, from Bertrand Russell. Men are born ignorant, not stupid. They are made stupid by education. Isn't that exactly what our high-priced indoctrination system is doing to our children? Now, speaking of being made stupid through education, this here map, my friends, is the county-by-county map of the presidential elections that took place in 2016. Now, the Democrats and a Republican are pushing to do away with the Electoral College. And what does that mean to our country? What that means is this, my friends. You can take all the red that you see on this map here and have the understanding that none of it would have, and some of the blue, none of the red and some of the blue would have not counted if there was not an Electoral College set up in our voting system. This is the reason why the Founding Fathers did it, because what the Electoral College does is it makes sure that there's mutual and equal representation in the tally of the votes. In other words, if you look at the Democratic strongholds, of course, Vermont's right there. I am very happy to see that a little bit of Vermont, particularly the Northeast Kingdom, had a little bit of voting the other way. But if you would look at this map, you would see that, particularly on the West Coast and the East Coast, all the major urban centers, if there was no Electoral College, just because of the sheer numbers of population, none of the red would have been represented. Some of the blue would have not been represented. But what won the election would have been Hillary Clinton, because you have New York City and New Jersey and the West Coast of California and so forth, who would have had, because of the population density, would have won the vote for Hillary Clinton, and none of the rest of the nation would have mattered whatsoever. That's what the Electoral College is about. Okay. My friends, we're going to show a documentary, a quick film to you. I'm sorry, I'm showing my age when I say the word film. A quick video to you. It's the 2nd year anniversary of the massacre, what took place in Las Vegas. Now, the FBI has never released what actually happened in Las Vegas. If you remember right, there was news clips about Paddock and all that, and we showed all the inconsistencies with it. And then they said that within a year, after the year anniversary, that they were going to release all the information on it. Well, As Jonathan Gruber said, Americans have the memory of a goldfish, and they were planning on that. So that 1 year anniversary went by with no release of information. And now the 2nd year anniversary is going by with no release of information. So we are going to show a quick clip of about some of the evidence that we covered on this program. We covered everything you're about to see, we covered on this program, but now you're going to see it in actual footage from this clip that we're about to show you. So Bill, if we could we please run that clip? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Get down.
Famously, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and that apparently applies to the Mandalay Bay shooting as much as anything else.
Within 2 hours of the Las Vegas massacre, authorities announced that 64-year-old Stephen Paddock had acted as the lone gunman, officially making it the deadliest mass shooting committed by an individual in the history of the United States. But 2 years later, there are still many questions with no answers. Videos from the event show no muzzle flash from Paddock's window on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Photographs show that Paddock's windows were intact during the shooting. Police inside the room after the shooting said there was no broken window. After the shooting, a man staying at the Mandalay Bay called 911 and reported an explosion and glass falling down from above.
911 emergency, Brown 15968. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Okay, and I just heard what sounded like a explosion above me, and then glass coming down around me, or right outside the window.
Later that night, BBC television showed one window being broken. By the next morning, there were 2 broken windows. Several witnesses claimed there were multiple shooters.
Sounded like there were a dozen shooters.
It sounded like more than one machine gun.
The New York Excalibur shooting was right outside. It wasn't inside, it was outside. We saw the muzzle flashes.
I'm waiting for somebody to come through that entrance because it sounds like they're on the ground.
I knew we were getting gunshots that were closer to us than where they originally started, and that's when we knew we had to run.
We all started running, and they came in.
There's a shooter in Planet Hollywood right now.
Multiple shooters.
Multiple shooters.
It has to be.
There was also shooting going on inside of the Mandalay Bay.
Claims of multiple shooters can also be heard on security and police comms.
There was a shooter at the front desk of New York, and 2 shots were fired inside casino floor.
It sounds like it's confirmed there are at least 2 shooters with fully automatic weapons.
Now I'm getting information of an active shooter at Tropicana.
Has advised bomb squad to deal with the issue over there at Luxor, reference the 445 device.
It is be advised now there's an active shooter at the Tropicana,
In one video, we see what looks like a weapon firing from a window 6 floors above Paddock's room in the Four Seasons, which is owned by Bill Gates and Saudi Prince Al Walid bin Talal. There also appears to be muzzle flashes coming from the sky on both sides of the Mandalay Bay, precisely where flight radar places 3 helicopters that turned off their transponders minutes before the shooting began, while hovering in position overlooking the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
He's flying in a helicopter. You think he's in a helicopter?
Yes, not a doubt in my mind that there was shooting coming from the helicopter.
In room 32135, Paddock's hard drive was suspiciously missing from his laptop. There were several pairs of gloves, mobile phones, and multiple hotel room keys used just 30 minutes before the shooting, including smart keys available only to hotel staff. At first, police said they witnessed Paddock kill himself, and then they claim they found him dead after the breach. And for some unknown reason, his time of death was marked at noon the following day. Mandalay Bay security guard Jesus Campos, was supposedly shot in the leg by Paddock 6 minutes before he began his attack. And yet, it took law enforcement 72 minutes to get into Paddock's hotel room. Body cam footage shows a hotel security guard directing police to the 32nd floor.
32. 32? Yeah, 32, 32, 32. Is it confirmed? Yeah, the 32.
And less than 10 minutes later, directing other officers to the 29th floor.
Yeah, you already got 29th floor, that's all we got.
When the police finally get to Paddock's floor, hotel security seems strangely casual. One strolls down the hallway with his back to Paddock's room and points behind him to room 135. And they then stand calmly in the hallway with their attention fixed on the police. Hotel security manager George Umstadt was later found hiding in a hotel room and detained by police. And several key officers were never even questioned. Campos claimed he went to UMC Quick Care for treatment, but the facility stated they had no record of this. He then left the country and returned only to appear on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, owned by MGM. MGM was granted a restraining order weeks after the shooting to prevent them from destroying evidence.
I can only think of two possible scenarios here. One, completely implausible, that the Mandalay was a co-conspirator in this, which is nonsense. Or
Right.
number two, there's some kind of hostility or a trust gap developing between law enforcement and the Mandalay. Nothing else makes sense, Tucker. There's no other way to square that circle.
One theory suggests it was Saudi Arabia. Just 3 months before the Las Vegas massacre, moderate Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, was made the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and was met that same day with President Trump's personal show of support. This created a civil war between MBS and his hardliner cousin, Al Walid bin Talal, co-owner of the Four Seasons, which resides on floors 35 through 39 of the Mandalay Bay Hotel. The theory suggests there was a failed assassination attempt against MBS at the Tropicana Hotel that night, and that the massacre at the Route 91 Harvest Festival was a savage message of warning to President Trump. Stephen Paddock was a pilot, and according to this theory, a gun runner for Prince Al Walid bin Talal. This would explain Paddock's wealth and access to the service elevators at the Mandalay Bay. And when the assassination attempt failed, Paddock became Talal's sacrificial lamb rather than his getaway pilot. The prince had Saudi military helicopters in the area at the time. 4 weeks after the Las Vegas shooting, MBS had his cousin Prince Al Walid bin Talal and 10 other princes arrested on corruption and money laundering charges. We don't know if this theory is correct, but a year later, the case was closed. And we are told there is nothing to the story but the 64-year-old lone gunman with no motive, Stephen Paddock.
There's no conspiracy between the FBI, between LVMPD, and the MGM. Nobody is attempting to hide anything.
Very interesting, huh, my friends? The Intel Hub had come out with the website Intel Hub had come out with all about the helicopters, the transponders being shut down, the windows not being broken out in Paddock's room, no flashing, all the multiple shooters, the witnesses, the police, fire, EMS, all talking about ground level multiple shooters. You didn't hear that. You heard it on this program, but you didn't hear it from the mainstream media, did you? Let us continue. Now, the drag queen phenomenon is going on. And now the FDA has come out with a report, and I want to read this to you. I'm going to have to be real quick here. New data released by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration reveals that since the year 2012, more than 40,000 people have suffered adverse reactions from taking the hormone-blocking pharmaceutical Liprin. And for those of you in the medical field, if you want to look this up, it's leuprolide acetate. while at least, now listen to this, while at least 6,370 people have died since 2014 from taking the drug. Now you may say, well, who's taking the drug? Why are they taking the drug? My friends, I don't have the time to read this whole thing. This is a puberty delaying, they use the word delaying, drug. Commonly prescribed to children who have been manipulated into believing that they're transgenders in need of a chemical sex change, Lupron has reportedly caused more than 25,500 serious reactions in patients in just the last 5 years, and this is according to the FDA, which, by the way, approved this drug. Many of these adverse reactions appear to have occurred in patients who were prescribed the drug for off-label use, such as, listen to this is according to the FDA, transgender therapy. While Lupron is clinically approved for treating precocious puberty, which is, to break that word down, it's abnormally early, okay? The puberty cycles come in abnormally early. And why is that? Well, it's the RBGH and RBST growth hormones that are in milk products and other things are doing this to children. So again, all of that has been approved by the FDA. Here we go. It is not approved for use in children with gender dysphoria, okay? But this is how Lupron is now being widely prescribed. So it's not approved for use in children, but it's being widely prescribed by doctors, putting the health of children with gender dysphoria at serious risk. The pediatric version of the drug is also largely mislabeled, as it comes with minimal warnings about long-term side effects, some of which could be irreversible. I think death is irreversible, my friend. Such irreversible side effects include permanent damage to the endocrine system, which is responsible for producing sex hormones that sustain life. It's a serious condition that endocrine cardiologists would normally diagnose and treat because it interferes with the development, but in cases they've inducing this disease state. Unbelievable. So what they're doing, my friends, and I got to stop here for the sake of time, they are using this drug, which has been approved by the FDA, not for children, but doctors are prescribing it to children. So a high percentage of these people who have had adverse reactions and death are children. Are you with me? Because as young as 3 years old, children have been convinced that their sexuality is wrong. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, let us continue. Now, I'm going to read a report to you, and again, I'm low on time here because of all the things we're going to be showing you. This is a report from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Listen to this, my friends. Americans spend more on taxes in 2018 than on food, clothing, and health care combined. Americans spend more on taxes than on food, clothing, and health care combined. I don't have the time to get into all the details, but I just want you to break this down, my friends. How much money do you spend on food? How much money do you spend on clothing? Boy, we are the most expensive healthcare system in the world, even though we have the highest cancer rates. And another report just came out this past week, which I don't have time to get into, about how longevity is coming down, which has been coming down literally since the 1950s when vaccines came into play. Okay? Now, folks, I don't have the time to get into all the numbers here, but if you wish to, you can go to CNS News. That's CNS, Charlie November Sierra, News, and read this entire program, this report. Now, what I did, I was going to sort of condense this down, but what I did is I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey. Just punch that in, Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Expenditure Survey, and it's all broken down there, my friends, how the American people are spending more on taxes than on food, clothing, and health care combined. Mind you, as we reported to you last week, the American people are $81 million in debt to the healthcare healthcare system. Unbelievable. Really unbelievable. And these taxes does not include fees that we pay. Okay? It doesn't include any kind of fees. It doesn't include the tariffs and taxes that you pay on products, because the businesses that produce these products, well, who's going to be paying for the taxes? The corporate taxes. It's going to be you and I. This does not include that, my friends. It doesn't include the cost of regulations. It doesn't include the cost of fees. It does not include the cost of that's put on products by taxes on corporations that we don't see. It doesn't even include all that. It just includes, this survey includes taxes up front that we do see, your income taxes and so forth. Understand this. We are paying more in taxes than on the basic necessities of life. And it's not even including all the fees and taxes in this equation. Okay, so I jumped around here because I wanted to read something to you from Robert Gore. The U.S. government has gone all in on taxation, redistribution, spending, expansion of its power, ever more intrusive laws and regulations, the increasing curtailment of liberty, debt funding, and debt-based money it and the Federal Reserve produce at will. The collusion and fraud implicit in these measures have been poisonous on the American political culture and are destroying the U.S. economy and the American way of life. Robert Gore. Do you think so? Do you think so? Absolutely true. Now, I have to stop there again for the sake of time. I want to jump back into Saul Alinsky and what is going on with the anniversary. And I know I jumped around a little bit here, folks. I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure I got the tax report in about what really is going on here with the Bidens and Ukraine. Now, understand something, my friends. We reported what was going on with the Ukraine on this program, what was going on with the Ukraine and Hunter Biden 3.5 years ago. 3.5 years ago, this little show was reporting this information to you, which is now just starting to come to the limelight of the American people. Now, Saul Alinsky, the despair is there. Now it's up to us to go in and rub the raw sores of the discontent, galvanize them for radical social change. Saul Alinsky, the very first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did so effectively that he has at least won his own kingdom, is Lucifer. My friends, you remember we broke down the pamphlet that he wrote, Rules for Radicals? And do you remember this one? The major premise for tactics is the development of operations that will maintain a constant pressure upon the opposition. And now, if you look at the Marxist maxioms, you know, like there's the 12 maxioms of contract. Well, there's the 10 maxioms of Marxism. What is number one of them? One of them is, accuse your enemy of what you are doing as you are doing it to, excuse me, I'm going to read this over. Accuse your enemy of what you are doing as you are doing it to create confusion. What was one of the maxioms, I call it the tenets, of the Frankfurt School that we just went through with you, with regards to law, the courts, and with regards to education? Create confusion. So where did our school system and our court systems get this maxim from? Engels and Marx. The Marxist maxioms. Okay? Are you with me? So now, we are going to show two clips to you. The first one we're going to show is Joe Biden Vice President Joe Biden, on C-SPAN. He's publicly stating this, my friends, in your face. Nothing you can do about it. Move on. Can you imagine how they laugh at us? Can you imagine what they really think of the American people? When they can go on C-SPAN at the Council on the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations. Now, the Council on Foreign Relations, the average American's never heard of. Up until about 6 to 8 years ago, the Council on Foreign Relations, which has been in place since the 1920s, was denied its existence. Even Rush Limbaugh, the big, great conservative, 8 years ago, denied its existence. Was he ignorant of it? Maybe. I doubt it. And if he was ignorant of it, he has no right being a radio host talking about matters like this. But here's Vice President Biden talking publicly on the CFR about how things are really done with this government, how they're really implemented, where your tax dollars and your sweat equity really go, and how they're profiting from it, from having the control of the largest and the purse strings of your sweat equity. Oh, and by the way, my friends, all this money that Hunter now is getting $50,000 a month from this company that we're going to be showing you also. $50,000 a month. Does he have experience in the oil industry, in the refining industry? Nothing. Why is he getting $50,000 a month? Because it's payoff, because his dad had the ability to say yay or nay as vice president of the insolvent corporation USA Inc. to take your sweat equity through tax dollars and put it where he wants at his profit. And they're not going to be paying the taxes that you and I pay, my friends, because all this money goes offshore. So, Bill, if we could, let's roll first Joe Biden at the Council on Foreign Relations. And listen, folks, listen to all the members of the Council on Foreign Relations laughing as he's talking about this. And then, Bill, right behind it, if we could, let's show, which we have never shown anything from the mainstream media before, the interview with Rudy Giuliani, who was representing his client, President Trump. So President Trump has given him the go-ahead to come out publicly with this, and George Stephanopoulos is trying to deflect it and shut him down. But Rudy Giuliani, he stays with his nose to the grindstone. He doesn't let him divert and deflect the information. He gets the information out there. So my friends, sit back, understand what's going on here, and watch where your sweat equity and watch the corruption and the fraud that goes on every day of the year, multiple times every day of the year, as they profit and your sweat equity is extracted from you on a higher rate than what you pay for the basic necessities of life. Bill, let's please roll them clips.
That is, I'm desperately concerned about the backsliding on the part of Kyiv in terms of corruption. They made, I mean, I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be, that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time. Well, there's still, so they made some.
We are joined now by the mayor, former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer. Mayor, thank you for joining us
here this morning. You just heard Tom Bossert right there. He says if you keep pushing this conspiracy theory that he says has been debunked, you're going to bring the president
with
down.
all due respect to Tom Bossert, he doesn't know what he's talking about. That I invented this. This was given to me. It was given to me in November.
He says intelligence agencies debunked it. He told the president that more than 2 years ago.
Oh, you were talking about that CrowdStrike thing?
Yeah.
That isn't the only thing he asked about. What he's asking about here is...
But let's focus on that first, though. I mean, do you accept that it's debunked? Will you stop peddling it?
I've never peddled it. You ever hear me talk about CrowdStrike? I've never peddled it. Tom Bossert doesn't know what he's talking about. I've never engaged in any theory that the Ukrainians did the hacking. In fact, when this was first presented to me, I pretty clearly understood the Ukrainians didn't do the hacking. But that doesn't mean the Ukrainians didn't do anything, and this is where Bossert
So why does the president keep repeating it?
Let's get on to the point.
Well, this was
I just heard, I agree with Bossert on one thing. It's clear there's no evidence the Ukrainians did it. I never pursued any evidence, and he's created a red herring. What the president's talking about is, however, there is a load of evidence that the Ukrainians created false information, that they were asked by the Obama White House to do it in January of 2016, information he's never bothered to go read. There are affidavits that have been out there for 5 months that none of you have listened to about how there's a Ukrainian court finding that a particular individual illegally gave the Clinton campaign information. No one bothered to investigate that. Nobody cared about it. It's a court opinion in the Ukraine. The Ukrainians came to me. I didn't go to them. The Ukrainians came to me and said...
When did they first come to you?
November of 2016, they first came to me and they said, we have shocking evidence that the collusion that they claim happened in Russia, which didn't happen, happened in the Ukraine, and it happened with Hillary Clinton. George Soros was behind it. George Soros' company was funding it.
But you accept now that that's not true?
I accept that it is true. I can prove it. There are affidavits to prove that they were colluding with the Ukrainians, conspiring with the Ukrainians. There's a specific person in the DNC who was designated to get this information. There are 5 Ukrainian witnesses under oath saying it that are online, and if you had any regard for equal justice under the law, you would be looking for those. Well, let me ask the following question to anybody at home. If I change the names of Joe Biden and Hunter Biden to Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr., 8 million from Ukraine while under investigation, 1.5 billion from China while negotiating with China, would I be sitting here?
Sir,
George, please let me finish my sentence.
But you just made...
I know it's a damaging sentence.
The 1.5 billion is simply not true.
It is simply true.
It is not true.
How do you know it's not true? Have you seen the documents?
We've seen what the fund that you're talking about was set up. Hunter Biden was on the advisory board. He wasn't an investor until 2017, and there's no evidence that they've gotten $1.5 billion.
There's evidence that they got $1 billion directly from China, specific date, 12 days after they returned from a trip to China. There's evidence that another 500 million went in, and there are 3 partners. Rosemont Seneca, that's Hunter Biden, and the stepson of the Secretary of State. The second partner is the Bank of China, and the third partner is a company called Thornton Group, and the principal of Thornton Group is White.
Have you ever talked to Chinese nationals about investigating Hunter Biden or Joe Biden?
Let me finish the sentence before you try to figure out what I might have done wrong in revealing this evidence that you're telling me isn't true, which I've seen. So the principles.
Well, others have counter evidence, and I'm responding with that.
Well, then let's investigate it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Have you asked the Chinese to investigate that?
Can I finish what it is that I haven't finished?
Okay, then answer
what
the
I would have asked them to investigate if I did. The 1.5 billion was in a company that was specially established called Bohai Harvest Rosemont Seneca, or some crazy name like that. The partners were Joe Biden's son, John Kerry's stepson, the Bank of China, 1/3 partner at least, and the Thornton Group that was owned by Whitey Bulger's nephew. Now, that's all out there. You can go and look at it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It should be investigated.
What Hunter Biden's lawyer said...
Did I ever ask the Chinese government? No. It's not my... If I did that, you could truly say I was investigating Joe Biden. I'm not investigating Joe Biden. I fell upon Joe Biden in investigating how the Ukrainians were conspiring with the Hillary Clinton campaign to turn over dirty information, including something for which a Ukrainian has already been convicted. So I have a very solid basis for doing it. I also support everything I say with affidavits. I have an affidavit here that's been online for 6 months that nobody bothered to read from the gentleman who was fired, Victor Shokin, the so-called corrupt prosecutor. The Biden people say that he wasn't investigating Hunter Biden at the time. He says under oath that he was.
But as you know, I know he says that under oath.
Oh, he must not be. We don't even know him. He must not be telling the truth.
We know that Vice President Biden was part of an international effort, was part of a government-wide effort to help push the prosecutor out because
if the name here was Donald
corruptions.
Trump and Donald Trump Jr., and it said that the president of the Ukraine asked me to resign due to pressure from the U.S. presidential administration. The truth is that I was forced out because I was leading a wide-ranging corruption probe into Burisma Holdings and Joe Biden's son. That's under oath by the prosecutor who was handling the case, who they say is corrupt. Now, a lot of prosecutors...
It's not just they who said it's corrupt. The European Union said he's corrupt. The entire U.S. administration
they all said it.
corrupt.
Anybody prove it?
That's why he was removed from office.
No, it wasn't. The reason he was removed from office was he resigned because the president forced him to resign. And then, just in case we want to deal with the corruption thing, I have another affidavit, this time from another Ukrainian prosecutor who says that the day after Biden strong-armed the president to remove Shokin, they show up in the prosecutor's office, lawyers for Hunter Biden show up in the prosecutor's office, and they give an apology for dissemination of false information.
I know.
And you know what the apology is for? For having gotten out the story that this guy was corrupt. Now, if you met this guy, he's not very good at corruption because he's very poor. Well, unlike the prosecutor who tanked the case on Biden, who's driving around in a Bentley.
Okay, you've gotten those charges out there. Let's talk about
No, I haven't gotten them out there.
No, you have gotten them out there.
No, I haven't.
You just
these are
those affidavits.
Can I make a contrast? Can I just make a slight contrast with the so-called whistleblower? The whistleblower says, I don't have any direct knowledge. I just heard things. Up until 2 weeks before he did that, that wouldn't even have been a complaint. It would have been dismissed.
Those are from, he heard things from White House officials, and everything in that that he said about the phone call is basically tracks the transcript that was revealed.
You know what he's wrong about? He says about the phone call that my meeting with Mr. Yermak was a direct result of the phone call. No, it wasn't. The meeting was set up 3 days before the phone call. It wasn't a direct result of the phone call. He said that he heard from numerous military people that I attempted to contact two individuals, Andrei Boldan and a fellow named Kononov. The simple fact is I never did. It's a total lie. I never would have contacted Andrei Boldan because I had been told by very, very good authorities that he's corrupt.
You said earlier...
And I shouldn't go near him. He said about 5 other things that are totally false.
And this is what the investigation.
And I'm not saying he was false. I'm saying he could have heard it wrong. That's why, George, that's why it's hearsay. Because it's unreliable, inherently unreliable.
That's what the investigation
unlike
is about.
Unlike him, please, can I just make my point?
You've been making your point.
No, I haven't. Unlike him, these are affidavits.
From individuals who are implicated who have been
Isn't that the way we prosecute crime? With people implicated?
That will be part of the investigation that the House is conducting.
How about if I tell you over the next week 4 more of these will come out from 4 other prosecutors?
And they will all be investigated. Meantime,
no, George, they won't be. Because they've been online for 6 months. And the Washington press will not accept the fact that Joe Biden may have done something like this.
If these are so serious...
If this were Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr., I wouldn't be here having to do this.
Mr. Mayor,
I am defending my client the best way I know how. This is not about getting Joe Biden in trouble. This is about proving that Donald Trump was framed by the Democrats.
If these charges are so serious and so credible, why have they not been picked up by the president's hand-picked FBI director, the president's hand-picked Attorney General William Barr?
I don't know. Maybe they have been. I don't know if they have been or they haven't. And if I did, I couldn't tell you.
But isn't that the appropriate place for that if they are serious and credible charges rather than the president?
One of the ways this came to me is that the 4 different Ukrainian prosecutors, you can dismiss them all. I can't, if they're willing to swear under oath, tell me that they tried to get it to the FBI and the Justice Department for an entire year and were completely...
The president picked the head of the FBI. The president picked the head of the Justice Department. If they're serious,
well, William Barr wasn't at the Justice Department.
He's there now.
Well, I'm not telling you whether they are or aren't investigating it. I'm telling you, look, I got this a long time ago, in November of 2018. Very serious concerns at that time by the Ukrainian prosecutors about the FBI. So I decided to go another way. Also because if I went to the FBI or I went to the Justice Department,
You've never done that?
I'm not saying I did or I didn't, but if I did it at that time.
Well, what's the answer? Did you or didn't you?
I've never initiated going to them for a simple reason. Schiff would claim I was exercising my influence to get it investigated. So here's what I did. I put it online. I announced it. I went on every place and said, I have this evidence. And I waited for them to come and get it on their own. So I didn't get a charge that I was trying to force an investigation they didn't want to do. But if you just bother to Google, I made it easy to make this case.
Mr. Mayor,
put it together.
I've gone through this, and there's, as I said,
have you read Kalyunuk's statement?
I have read.
Mr. Kalyunuk is another prosecutor.
I've seen that there's no credible allegation of wrongdoing against Joe Biden.
Why is this less credible than the whistleblower when this is direct knowledge and the whistleblower is hearsay? Why is Kalyunuk's statement not credible evidence when he went under oath? Why isn't Kalyunuk's statement not credible evidence when he went under oath?
You'll have to ask that to the Ukrainian authorities and our own Justice Department, which is not prosecuted. But I do have to move on.
Who says
our
Justice Department isn't prosecuted?
You believe the Justice Department is investigating?
I don't know. If they're not, it would be
There's no evidence that they are. But are you going to cooperate with the House investigation?
Is it possible, excuse me, I'm being respectful. Is it possible for you to ever treat a charge against a Democrat in the same way as you treat a charge against a Republican? Are you telling me that if there was a sworn affidavit, and the names here were Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr., you, your network, the entire Washington, wherever they are, wouldn't be, I wouldn't have to be sitting here showing it to you.
Are you telling me if there was evidence that Barack Obama was calling up the Russians and say, I want you to look into Donald Trump, that you wouldn't be blowing that up?
He didn't do that.
I know he didn't do that.
He didn't do that. No. Trump didn't do that. He called him up and he said, I want you to investigate these charges of corruption. If he hadn't asked them to investigate Biden, he would have violated Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution. And I also know if Obama had called Biden in, when the New York Times first broke the story in December of 2015, that his son had a massive conflict of interest working for the most corrupt oligarch in Russia, in Ukraine. If Obama had called him in, like a president who understood Article 2, Section 3, and said, Joe, what the heck are you doing with your son who just got tossed out of the military, where I had to pull strings to get him in? Your son is working for the biggest crook, listen to me, the biggest crook in Ukraine, and we're trying to fix corruption in Ukraine, and you got him working for Mykola Zlochevsky, who stole $5 billion?
Mr. Mayor, you've made your case.
Did Obama do that?
Are you going to cooperate with the House Intelligence Committee?
That is a question that has a lot of implications to it. Believe it or not, I'm an attorney. Everything I did was to defend my client. I am proud of what I did. And I am proud of having uncovered what will turn out to be a massive pay-for-play scheme, not unlike the Clinton Foundation.
So will you cooperate?
And then we got to look at the $1.5 billion from China.
You keep on throwing out the charges.
And the two other places that Hunter Biden went to sell his father's
Will
office.
you cooperate with the House Intelligence Committee?
I wouldn't cooperate with Adam Schiff. I think Adam Schiff should be removed. If they remove Adam Schiff, if they put a neutral person in who hasn't prejudged the case, if they put someone in, a Democrat who hasn't expressed an opinion yet, if I had a judge in a case and he had already announced I'm going to impeach, if he already went ahead and did a whole false episode, wouldn't I move to recuse that judge?
So that's your answer. You're not going to cooperate.
I didn't say that. I said I will consider it.
You said you wouldn't do it.
You said
you will not cooperate with that.
I said I will consider it. I have to be guided by my client, frankly. I'm a lawyer. It's his privilege, not mine. If he decides that he wants me to testify, of course I'll testify, even though I think Adam Schiff is an illegitimate chairman. He has already prejudged the case. If we want fairness here, we got to put somebody in charge of that committee who has an open mind, not someone who wants to hang the president, who said, I have evidence of Russian collusion. Adam, where's the evidence?
Isn't that interesting, my friends? Isn't that interesting? It's a big joke to them because they profit. Can you imagine what would happen to you or me if we publicly did something like that? Think about it. Think about this. I want you to understand, my friends, the state of where we are. And I got another one for you that may not come out for another 3.5 years. I don't know. But I've been doing a lot of research on the Bidens. Never mind all the crazy stuff that they do. Some pretty perverted things. I'm not going to get into all that. We see enough perversion with what's going on in our public food system with drag queen hours and so forth. I don't even want to talk about it. Remember me saying this, my friends, because I've been researching. The Bidens are connected to another program where they're profiting with the country of China to the tune that I found so far of $1.05 billion, billion dollars. I don't know if it's going to come out tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to come out 3.5 years from now, like the one that's coming out now that we reported to you 3.5 years ago. I don't know. But I am telling you it's there. The Bidens and corporations in China have had a deal done with kickbacks to the Bidens. I have not figured out the percentages of what they got, but the total contract, my friends, was $1.05 billion, dollars. $50,000 a month because your daddy is the VP of the Insolvent USA Inc. on $100 million contracts, never mind all the money up front when the deal was done. What do you think the kickback is on a contract worth $1.05 billion that we know of? How much are the American people going to take? You know, it's an interesting when Roger Sherman, during the Constitutional Conventions, when he asked Thomas Jefferson, how far do you think the tyrant King George will go? Thomas Jefferson replied to Roger Sherman, one of the most unsung heroes of the founding era of this country, Roger Sherman. He's the only one, my friends, to sign all 3 founding documents. And he risked life and limb and his family. And he was from the state of Connecticut. And Mr. Jefferson replied, the tyrant king will go as far as the people of these colonies allow him to. Well, hell, folks, you're already paying more to the government, and not even all of it. This is just direct taxes. Then, like I said, this equation in the BLS is not talking about the hike of cost on products, the fees that you pay. No, just direct taxes. How far do you think they'll go? Why do you think they want your guns? Look what's going on in Hong Kong right now. Oh, and did you see this survey? Speaking of Hong Kong, did you see this survey? The United States is not even included in the top 10 freest nations in the world anymore. Hong Kong's included in the top 10. They don't even have guns. And we all saw the Chinese soldier shoot the unarmed civilian. And you say, well, gee, Tom, that'll never happen here. Really? Can you say the name Lavoy Finicum? We showed you the FBI footage of Lavoy Finicum with his hands up being gunned down by the FBI. Did anybody go to prison for that? No. Did Ron Hutiuchi, the FBI sniper at Ruby Ridge, go to prison for murdering the Weaver family? No. He was promoted. Why do you think they want your guns, my friends? Why do you think they're dumbing down your children? Why do you think everything is topsy-turvy? Create confusion. My friends, in the words of John Philpott Curran, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And this is where we have failed as a people. Because we are stricken with what's known as the Delphi syndrome. I don't have the time. I've already got into that before. We are apathetic and we are ignorant, and that has brought us into a state of apathy and denial and Delphi syndrome. So, my friends, this is the state of our nation. And the corruption is limitless. It's infinite. Only we can make it finite. My friends, I thank you very much for watching this program. We always close in asking you to seek truth, obtain knowledge, manifest kindness to your fellow man, and we always close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. We thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines. Well, the truth is very simple, very hard to find.